All right, well, here we are on week 2, day 3 of my name is Elliot Dockstader Wynn. I am your instructor, teacher for Wassa Distance Education Center here in Sioux Lookout, part of the Wassa Distance Education Network. And just to make sure that we are all on the go, I can see all the buttons are being clicked, all the visualizations are happening, and I'm also, as you've seen, as the little screensaver there. I'm also the host of Indigital Voices here on the Wassa Distance Education Network. But you can check out that another time. Let's skip that part. But we are here for with. Being again for another class of our NBV3E World Views and Aspirations of First Nations and Métis and Inuit. So we are going to just hop out of here for just a second. Oh, wait, look at here we go. This is the way to connect with us. As the teacher, Elliot.Dockstader-Win at nnec.ca. The phone number here at the Wassa Distance Education Center is 807-737-1488, extension 2223. That's me. And of course, for all the people who are out there, Elliot Dockstader Win is, well, I don't need to spell it for you. I'm sure you can figure it out or find it somewhere. I must be Googleable. Is Googleable even a word? Well, we'll see. Anyways, as part of the presentation of this class, you can go to the live Zoom link. The QR code is available on the presentation page so that you can look, and you can also find those online. Wassa Distance Education Center is at 74 Front Street in Sioux Lookout. So if you're one of the students and you'd like or have an interest in what you're hearing on the radio, you can come in and sign up. And that's part of the process here, as we are part of the Northern Anishinaabe Education Council. And the number here is 737-1488. There's fax numbers available for sending in work, and so either contact via email, via fax, or phone through your local DEC from your home community, and or your education faculty advisor for wherever you are in the great wide world around Turtle Island. And that is really, you're the only one who knows where you are right now. I know where I am. Okay, we're in studio. So let's start this off in a good way. I'm going to just go big screen for a second because we have to be able to get in a good feel for this. So what we're talking about a lot in this course is Indigenous perspective, First Nation, FNMI. That's the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit perspective, and how those things are drawn together. And when we talk about that kind of thing, we have to start in a good way. So we are in the home territories of the Lac Seul of the First Nation. For one, there's a land acknowledgement to understand where we are and what we're honoring. And also, you're here to honor yourself with knowledge. And so, to start off in a good way, I have my tobacco here, and my sema, and I have my drum. And part of this is going to be put this on my drum. You're supposed to give a little bit of a gift to the drum, because this drum is its own thing, just to honor it. So here, this is where science. Can you hear that? Oh, ASMR for those people who are listening on 91.9. That's the sound of the drum, or the sound of my hands when I'm not wearing gloves, working out in the cold. My wife, put some moisturizer on those things. Anyways, so here we go. We honor the drum with a little bit of tobacco, the sema, and then we start off. And as you've been watching in the previous classes, when we're talking about the 4 directions, those things always come into play. Numerology is part of the Indigenous culture, and 4 honors the directions. Metallic ending. There you go. That's that, and that goes back to our old stories from our own traditional culture. As you can hear me fumbling with my pots and pans here in the studio. I'm just going to make sure that we are on track for where we are today in our sharing and our learning. And boop. So thing we have to when we bring in the drum when we're using that signifies all the way from the back from back in history, but also in creation, and also as a part of us as human beings, because that beat, and people have said this a lot, so I'm not sure if it's a surprise to anybody by this point, but that beating of the drum is representative of the heartbeat, right? That the heartbeat that of our own bodies as we're growing, and when we're before we were even born, that's one of the only sounds we heard. Right now, when you go into the only difference now is that when they do ultrasound on like on pregnant ladies, it sounds more like this. That doesn't really sound. That's not a good example of that, but it is really cute to hear a new baby when they're doing their thing in their when they're in transitional state. And so if we go back, let's go back into our day here for just a second. I just want to backtrack for just a moment into question two, just in case there was any questions from anybody who's working through the booklets at this time. Just so you know, we are in a transitional period with the assignments and marks. If you've already handed this in or working on it, don't be scared. This is where you get to take a look and change it up. The questions for key question two have been modified. And I'm going to be sending out new versions of this immediately to make sure that there's no confusion about this, and so we'll find out more about this. But key question number two had two parts, one and two. And when we were talking earlier in yesterday and previously in our conversations, we were talking about the medicine wheel. So key question number two is describe what you learned about the medicine wheel. By all means, go back, make your notes from the class if you want. Do your own research. There is there, like from page 28 and 24 of the actual textbook, you can actually go back and get some of those notes. And if you already know, if you're already carrying that knowledge with you, by all means use your voice, use your writing, use your talking, and be able to put that together and express that. How does the medicine wheel teachings we have shared reflect about you? So there is some notes that we did share in our conversation, but if you are understanding what those are representative, I put a little examples at the bottom. At the bottom of the screen, you know, i.e., your age, your experience, animals, even medicine. And animals kind of relates to both the ones we spoke of in the medicine wheel, like corresponding to those colors and the directions, but they're also connected to, you know, spirit animals or animals that we might feel are have a connection to us. You know, if you're always seeing uh, a joke for us is when we're driving down the highway and we go cue the hawk. Sure enough, a hawk goes flying by, or usually we see it and then we say that, but it's just we seem to see hawks, you know, sporadically. That's the same thing when you see an eagle. You always say hello to it, or even put your tobacco out the window, you know. And then, but even your age, when we were talking about the correspondence of the medicine wheel, starting off in the east with the red and being like childhood or infancy, and then when you move through into the yellow, which is the youth time of your life, and when you mature into adulthood, that's the west, and the black side of the medicine wheel, and then eldership and age as you go into that time of wisdom and are working your way around the medicine wheel. So for any of our students at any level of age and as you're on your path, you can explain that, describe that. It's only worth 5 marks. I'm not going to say only worth 5 marks. I just did, but 5 marks is 5 marks. 5 things. Describe what you learned about it, and how does it reflect you? That's an easy 5 marks. You can do that. You can do that in your sleep. No, you can't. You have to be awake, but you can do it pretty quickly. So the next part in the key questions for the part two, I wanted to explain this a little bit more because previously in the workbook it was worth 35 marks. But because of how we're going to be reintroducing this, and so that you have a better idea, I want to make sure that you're hitting your marks of knowing and understanding and putting this into play, and how you're going to be able to execute this, your knowledge of what we're learning, and making it more adaptable to this indigenous learning and indigenous sharing that we're talking about. This sharing of the Anishinaabe Kandaswin. Okay, so for this assignment, and this is even different than the last one. So if you just watched the last video and now you're jumping into this one, go, oh, whoa, 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 whoa! I already just started. It's okay. Don't be scared. First rule of firefighting: don't be scared. So we're gonna choose for this assignment. You're required to produce a small project of your choosing. Choose one, or not two or three, but one is fine. Okay, and if you choose two, then it's probably because they fit together and it's a lot easier to do, um, and it's still worth. Oh, look at this! I got to fix my own notes. It's still worth 12 marks. 12 marks. 12 marks. This is two points each because there's questions coming up. But I want to explain this. So some examples are a poem or a song. There's some songwriters out there who are around. Poetry is just the closest thing to it. It's lyrical. I'm not going to mark you on style. There's lots of different kinds of poetry out there in the wide world. You can just rattle off, um, like what you feel. If it's a poem, you can rhyme if you want. You don't need to. Poetry is your feeling from your heart, that Debuewin truth that you carry, and then when you put it into words and just structure it into what you feel as a poem. A song, again, citing the musicians out there, you might have a song, and an artwork like a drawing or a painting. There's a lot of crafty people out there. A traditional craft is the next one, of course, and and then there's also a picture timeline. This is called a picture file, picture timeline. You find pictures that illustrate your point, right? You can look on the internet. You can print them off. You can do screenshots and put them into a Word doc, and you can send that to me, or you can glue it all down to a piece of paper, draw on your lines with your little notes, and then send it to me. And then another one that's on here is record an interview where you talk it out with a friend, family member, knowledge keeper, or elder. And there's 6 questions that are part of this. So if you're talking through those 6 questions, make sure to be careful and watch your time. I'm only expecting about 15 to 20 minutes for that if you do the recorded version. So you get your phone, and then you can set it on voice memo, and you can talk. Make sure that your microphone is back and forth to whoever you're talking to, and then so that you can be like, yeah, okay, oh, and then when you record that, you can stop it and then send it to me. Send it to me via email, elliot.dockstader-win@nnec.on.ca. You could share it in a Google Drive because as students, you have the NNEC schools link if you want, or you can try to send it. Uh, let's try those first. And if you have problems, get a hold of me. We'll figure it out. But the reason why I wanted to make sure that you understand that you're not picking a bunch of these. They're not all together. You make sure. But if you're making something, you need to add a written explanation or an audio recording. I'm adding that audio recording in there because sometimes, because we come from that a people of oration, of being able to talk it out, and sometimes talking it out actually helps the process, right? So if you want to explain why those things are in it, so if you have a poem and you go, this is the whole poem, and I get the whole poem, right? Then you go through and you go, this line means this line means this part means this, and let's try to if you're gonna do something really tricky, try not to be too outsmart yourself too much, because if you try to do a haiku, then you have to make sure that the haiku is actually haiku form. I'm thinking more free form poetry, like stream of consciousness, just feeling it, writing that Debwewan truth from your heart, and being able to put it through. And and uh, and if your song is good enough, we'll play it on the radio here. I we'll do it on in digital voice. Maybe you'll even get invited. Who knows? Maybe somebody will hear your song, and they'll go, "Oh my goodness, that person needs a break." You never know. Okay. So I'm here. Okay. So just so you know, if you're making something like a poem or a song or an artwork or a traditional craft or that picture timeline, I do need notation for it or an audio recording explaining it. That makes it a lot easier. So the reason why I wanted to make sure that I go through this is because it seemed even the wording of some of the questions was a little bit bumpy, and so when we go into that into what our there's that 35 marks again. We're done. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Here we go. It's still worth 12 marks. There's 6 items here, and 6 times 2 is 12. So if you state what you're talking about and then just explain it, that should cover your marks. So the first one is describe original and non-Aboriginal perspectives on the contemporary culture identities of Aboriginal people. What does that mean? It means how we see, how is indigenous worldview or indigenous seeing compared to non-indigenous culture. Explain the difference. Okay, so if I'm going to explain powwow dancing, then I'd have to explain Ukrainian dancing and why are those two things different, right? Or if I'm going to explain, what would be another good one? Explaining cooking with wild game, as opposed to the culinary arts. Otherwise, they're pretty closely related. They're Culinary arts is kind of an open thing, but you can just explain why the perspective of, because if you're talking about, say, indigenous food, you're talking about indigenous harvest, and if you're talking about indigenous harvest, you got to understand why we harvest in a way and how we honor the animals in the land when we're harvesting from it and putting it into practice. Okay, that's enough about part A. Part B, how should we celebrate accomplishments of Aboriginal people? How do we create awareness of Aboriginal issues? Okay, that's 2 questions. Curveball. Part B is 2 questions. Pick one. Pick how you'd like to answer this, because you need to just pick one, because you know fair is fair, and give an example, then explain it if it's the celebrating one or the creating awareness one, because awareness around issues is a little bit more serious, and celebrating can have a lightheartedness to it. But you just really have to just pick one of those and answer it. Part C, describe the importance of Aboriginal customs inside remote and outside, like urban Aboriginal communities. So remote communities and outside urban. Again, this is speaking from your own perspective, right? This is your version, Enabi, and that the way you see, the way you're experiencing it, and this is for non-Indigenous people and non-Indigenous students as well. Or people who are just listening on 91.9, just to understand how we integrate these things, because the way you see and how you understand, especially when we talk about indigenous worldview, is the integration of the world around us, the symbiotic, connected quality of our relationship to the land and the people and land around us. Okay. So, and there's a lot of people, we mentioned this. Again, I'm going to cite In Digital Voices, episode 5, where we did talk about how those words affect people and how we are a part of that. So, going on with this question too, the again, compare practices or beliefs or symbols among Aboriginal cultures and other cultural groups. The reason why there is actually more words in here. It's a little bit scaled back, but practices or beliefs or symbols. So we did talk a little bit about ceremony. We did talk about understanding the belief system and how that came into be, and we did talk about symbols, both like petroglyph and traditional representations and even some of I mentioned briefly like using traditional items as a mnemonic device, as a teaching device. So you can talk about that. Just pick one of those. Pick one of those. Compare FNMI to non-Aboriginal, non-Indigenous culture, not non-Aboriginal, non-Indigenous. FNMI, of course, is First Nations, Métis, and Inuit. This is where something that if you're reading something in the book and it catches your interest, because we do have the different areas of the nationhood of around this part of Turtle Island represented in our text, and that FNMI, the First Nation, Métis, or Inuit, to non-Indigenous culture. Pick one and compare it. So you're only picking practices or beliefs or symbols, and you're comparing it to non-indigenous. Okay, that's scaling down a little bit. Explain the indigenous relationship to the land. This is part E. Explain the indigenous relationship to the land and how traditionally life is still present in communities across Canada. This also had a lot longer question. So for those people who are just picking up on this right now, explain the indigenous relationship to the land. We're going to be talking about relationship to the land too, and how traditional life is still present in communities. This is kind of like, you know, it, again, this is a reflection from the book. You can pick out from the FNMI groupings, and there's even specific communities. And when we're talking about Indigenous nation or body of nations, uh, I, I said in this little side notes, pick one Indigenous nation or body of nations and describe how they stayed connected to the land and how do they still connect with traditional lifestyle. So, Indigenous nation or body of nations, because say like Ojibwe. Ojibwe is part of the Three Fires Confederacy, which consists of the Potawatomi, the Odawa, and the Ojibwe nations, right? And then also the Chippewa, because that was actually partially the offshoot of the Chippewa Nation was lost in translation during colonization. So Chippewa or Chippewa or Chippewa. That's where there are those the cousins of our great family are all connected. So those are a nation within a body of nations. So if you're going to say like even say something like the Six Nations, which is the Confederacy, the Haudenosaunee people, the Ongwahoe people of Southern Ontario, that's that would be one of the Six Nations would be a nation within the body of nations. You don't have to talk about all six. If you just pick one, that's the same thing with whatever nation body you're going to be, because there's Western nations, there's all the nations of the BC and the coast, there's the Northern nations and the Innu nations too. So pick one and then show how it's still represented. And of course, last but not least, question F on here: describe the importance of customs and ceremony and cultural reclamation. Okay, we've been talking about this through so far. Wow, we've hit a lot in just 2 weeks. I'm telling you, we're at the future now, talking about cultural reclamation, and from the historical side, this is interesting that this book it doesn't start off historical. We're just starting off in the belief systems right away, and it's part of it, the aspirations and of our. Let's just go back to that first title page, the worldviews and aspirations of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit communities in Canada. And we can't get past, we just gloss over the fact that the residential school experience and the incursion of colonialism affected the nation so drastically. And right now, cultural reclamation has been ongoing for the past, well, when I started to notice it was probably about 30 years ago. And and some of you are like, how old is that guy anyway? But I but I did see the change from kind of like tokenism of Indians to the full on cultural reclamation movement of regaining our heritage. And so this is a question where what is something about cultural reclamation? Why is it important? What does it do for Indigenous people? And this, of course, is from your perspective. This is a reflective question. This is what do you think? What do you think that cultural reclamation is doing? And then so that's the way I really wanted to get over through this, because we need to be able to best show like how we're going to be able to move on with what we're doing. You know what? And just you're just seeing part of the magic right now. I gotta just go back, change this up, just so that there's no confusion once you see these. Boom, 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 boom. That clickety click is me and my little fast fingers typing away, changing these up. 12 marks, 12 marks, 12 marks, 12 marks. I just made it official. Boom, 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 boom. It's a little bit more manageable uh, because it should be. I don't want anybody, again, this is where we're working together. You're going to be going through this, our project guide, and being able to better understand what we're doing. So we are, let me just check, time check here. We have about 20 minutes left in our class, and I would just want to say we're going with we're already in chapter 2. We're breaching the gap in unit 1. We're in chapter 2 of the textbook. Uh, and so relationships with the land. And I just wanted to play. I'm gonna go back to the slideshow version of this. Boom. And this is just a quick. This is the land is sacred, and this is a really good example of one of those of a practice in existence. And again, when I was talking about that 30 years ago, this is our connection to the land as part of our culture. And this is an artist piece by Rebecca Belmore, and it was called Omi Iwach Omama Uma Moan. Umama Moan. Speaking to their mother, 1991. So I'm going to just play a little clip here, Mr. Soundman. Yeah, so that was let's just escape this for a second. That was a little. Oh, can you hear me again? Aha. So that was they call it an earthwork installation. It was for people who can't see the pictures. There, Rebecca Belmore created this huge horn, like a cornucopia, like a gigantic, like almost like a tuba, like horn out of wood. And she went across the country to these different communities, remote communities, and had the people of the community speak to the land. And if you want to look that up, it's on YouTube. Again, that's Rebecca Belmore speaking to their mother, 1991, and you can see more of it online. I did have a chance to work with her and speak with her a while ago now, and just around the time when this was happening. But it was a very important piece at the time, because even the whole communities were coming together, and they had their elders who were doing prayers for the land. They had people talking to the land. They even had musical guests who were playing music and amplifying it through the speaker to the land. And she was taking it to clear cut zones and construction sites that were actually harvesting and utilizing for resource development in these territories that were in indigenous territory, and then being used kind of out of step from what the communities were hoping for. So when we see that kind of thing, we can best understand. Uh, boop. Yeah, here we go. The we can kind of better understand how people are feeling, the emotive feel of being able to participate together And let's see. I'm gonna jump that one for right now. We'll save that for another day. And this is when we talk about the connection to land and the use of language. This is an item that we shared on in Digital Voices, but I just want to put it in here because it corresponds with giving thanks to the land from your textbook on page 42. So we're just gonna listen to hear a little bit of words from language warrior, he calls himself, Isidore Toulouse.
It's a simple prayer talking about land, and it's words that you already recognize. So, miigwechwewen, the art of giving thanks, the way to give thanks. Gmiigwechugu de benjget, or gjeminidu. Gewi shkokamikwe, gmiigwechugu. Also, we thank you, Mother Earth. Njesa kenegego, njesa kenegego eteg mumpigit kamik. For the sake of everything that is here on this land, a git kamik. Meanwhile, gimi jang b'madzuin, bish, wesiag, gigoing, meanwhile zagidwin. Nad madada, weene jignu and among, to look after, jignu and among, ekunabing, to the direction of our territory as far as we can see. Ekunabing. Okay, that's when our people did treaties long ago. That's what they would say. As far as we can see, ekunabing. All right, ekunabing. So ekunabing mumpi a king look after this territory here on this land. Gewi jajgo gamajajik. Gewi jajgo gamajajik. And for our ancestors that have already left for the spirit world. It doesn't technically say that in English, it just says, and for those people that have already left us. Okay? Bewi do kushinang, nungo mumpi eshchigeang. So bewi do kushinang is come and join us, come and share with us your presence. Bewido Krishnang Nangoman PS Chigang. Come and join us today to share what we are doing. Nango Mampi Esh Chigeyang. I'll break that up just so you can see. Esh Chigeyang. Esh Chigeyang. Gewi Mshe Ebeyasegwa. Gewi Mshe Ebeyasgwa. And this is for the children that are yet unborn. Okay? Gewi Mshe Ebeyasgwa. And for those yet to come, Mshe Ebeyasgwa. Gija Kagenundama Gum Chibimna de Gushneg. Gija. There's that Gija again. Ahead of time. Okay? Gija. Kagnund magum, we will send our prayers for you so that you arrive in a good way. Ija kagnund magum, chibim na degushneg. Miigwech, 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 miigwech. Let me read it again. Miigwech wewin. Gmiigwech chugu de benjget, gjeminidu. Gewish kakamekwe, gmiigwech chugu. Jessa kinegego etek mompiget kamik. Meanwhile, gimi jang b'madzuin, bish, wesieg, gigoeg, meanwhile zagidwin. Nad malada, we ene jigno endamang equanabing mumpi a king. Gewi jashgo gamajajik, bewido kushnang, nango mumpi eschigeyang. Gewi mshe ebe yasagwa. Gija, Kaganund magum, chibemena de gushnek, miigwech, 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 miigwech.
Yeah, so that's just to kind of give an idea of how many things we're honoring, and that's representative of a prayer, but it's not the only prayer. And when you speak from your heart, again we're talking about our way that we interact with the world around us, our understanding, our way that we see the landscape and the environment around us. We're talking about how we relate, but there are definitely key things when we're honoring the world around us, the sky, the sun, the warmth, the ability to have our senses about us as a physical being, and our relationship to the land. And again, we're talking about how we best honor the land, the beings in it, and the spirits, the beings, the animals, and the things that are in it, because those old stories are encapsulated in it, and our relationship to it has to be maintained to have balance. So that's when we talk about our being again to our kinemagamic, when we're going to our lodge of learning, learning from the land, learning through our language. And for those people who are part of this part of our course, again, this is again we're adding a lot of terminology. I'm using more Anishinaabemowin in mind because I'm more familiar with that language base. But if you come from a Ojibwe or Anishinaabe background, and when you're or Anishinaabe language base or Cree, then by all means add that to your language. Even let me know, and I can add it to how part of our discussion. And if you're just catching up and want to log in during these classes, you by all means can. So we're talking about we bring it into conversation now about some of the changes that we experience, right? And we have seasonal changes. This is part of our from our books, where we're talking about the changes that exist, and we can reflect this right away against the four directions medicine wheel teachings. And we did mention it before. I'm not going to go through that list, but what are the seasonal changes that exist, and how are they reflective of the culture? With say spring, and we have the animals waking up, we have the plants, the first blooming plants. I have an elder friend who said just make sure you watch what plants happen first, because they're there to show you which ones are important as the seasonal change happens. What does our body need? What nutrients? Even when you think about how a food guide goes, the different things that are available at that part of the season. And this is a question, and this is something that I've spoke with Joe LeBlanc from the Northern School of Medicine when he was talking about food sovereignty. What things are available to us during harvest that our body needs, and how does that reflect in the culture? So so thaw is its own season. We have 6 seasons: thaw, freeze up, and thaw. And so spring, we'll put thaw in with spring for now, just because we're sticking with the medicine wheel. But the return of the migrations, and as the waters are opening up and it starts getting warmer, we have stuff like syrup harvesting. We're preparing for the fasting grounds for people who do ceremony, and we're preparing our plants. I know we start ours sometime in January, February, just so we're ready for springtime, because it takes that long to get healthy plants, especially in our climate zone. So that's just one part of it. And when we talk about moving into summer, that's a time when everything's growing. Everything's growing, and then we can start in a traditional aspect. You'd be starting to build things that you might need for the next season. Birch bark harvest goes from the warm part of spring into the early summer. You can't pick birch bark too late, or you could hurt the trees, but it's still available for skinning trees, making poles, doing if you're doing lodge building in a traditional time, or a home or log or longhouse building, building your palisade walls for your cities. But in our contemporary time, in our modern time, in our now time, building is still part of it. We do a lot more building and outside, and we're able to do a lot more work. Berry harvest season, so when blueberries hit, when strawberries hit, usually earlier, and then we have blueberries and blackberries and raspberries and huckleberries, and mountain cranberries, if anybody knows how to harvest that stuff. And then, but you also have that harvest overall because that's when you would find like things like wild ginseng and a lot more plants are producing. And summer is even when those thunderstorms happen and the rains come, those Nimki spirits that are part of the thunderstorms, that also signals when it's a good time to go get medicine. And as we go into the fall time, we have that's when the animals go back to sleep, and the leaves and the plants. I in the notation on the presentation it says they the leaves and plants they die slash go to sleep. So part of in the traditional teachings of the movement of the animals and what happens when they go hibernating is just that they go on their own spirit journey, and that's the same with the plants. They're going to sleep because their spirits are going off to the spirit world, and they're actually having their own councils to decide things about the fate of human beings and the issues at hand, and so there's a lot of stories that reflect that spiritual movement from here to there. And even in the fall time with transition and change, that's something that we have because even when we get to fall harvest and fall feasting, we're actually honoring those people who came before us and who went on to the next world and who went on to that to become spirit themselves. And so this might just a little quick note because I do mention spirit quite a bit, and that's the symbiotic quality that indigenous culture and an indigenous lifestyle had. You know what? I think I might have a special guest resource person come in and talk about that as a guest on for our class. Why not? But there's a reason for it. So in that fall time, we prepare for winter, and that's part of the harvest and prepping food and getting ready and getting our homes ready, and we kind of even do that now. You have people who get to they call it snow pants weather, where it's just there's getting cold and they just wear snow pants all the time, and then or that's even say like some people go, I'm going in and I'm not coming out till spring. That's their own form of hibernation. But in a traditional capacity, that would be a time where you'd be making things like snowshoes or sleds, or marking out where you're going to get your wood and make sure that your trails are set. And even now, they have groomers who are prepare the snowmobile trails to for the upcoming season. And wintertime is representative of that fourth piece of the four direction medicine wheel. The winter, that's where I was mentioning the winter council part of it, where as the plants die and the animals like go and hibernate, that's part of those stories of their spirits are going to the spirit world to have those councils. And it's a time of rest. It's a time for storytelling. And we were joking about this because there was a little bit of frost, but then I started telling stories, and sure enough, turned wintertime. Surprise! And but that's part of where the crust of the snow makes sure, because we have to honor the animals as well, because in the old stories they say that in the teachings is that when you tell stories out of season, then it distracts the animals from their work and they don't get things done. I guess it's a whole grasshopper and the ants kind of thing. But so we use our winter time to make things and deciding the distribution of responsibilities for next season. And this is an interesting one because there's different ways that do this. Because as as Indigenous people, we like to well, they call it. Well, I'm not going to say lateral violence. Lateral violence is being mean to somebody else, but this is a different thing because deciding the responsibilities for the next season, you would prove through games and activities and counsel that you or your family or your nation were better than the other ones and could do it better. So you'd be like, oh, you're gonna do you're gonna make canoes this year. No, you know what? We're gonna do it because we make the good ones. So it was a little bit of pride in your abilities and pride in your vocation, and that was the same thing. If somebody like in the south, they'd be planting corn, they'd be like, well, we'll plant the corn, because we're the best at it and our harvests are better than anybody else's. And there'd be friendly competition to see who would decide. Eventually, everybody would be helping anyway, as was the way to keep the 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 culture alive and a part of it. And we are just going to just exit out of this for just a second because I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here. Um, One of the reasons why I feel like I'm going to give you a little sneak peek. How about that? We're going to be talking about the Caribou song. This is something from text in your page 44 if you want to. We have another story that we're going to be covering a little bit later. We're going to be talking about turtles and the reason why turtle is so important to our history. And again, we go back to our Aboriginal view, our Anabian, how we see things, and or the way I see it. And one of the reasons why I keep on coming back to how this affects our culture, and this is partially, if you want to go back to our previous presentation, there's these shared beliefs and commitment, shared history, collective activity, character, and connection to territory, culture, and those things are the five dynamics of nationhood, and that's very specific to our loss of culture because there's a very specific practice put into place by the governance of Canada in from the inception of Canada to present day under the Indian Act. So I just want to make sure that you understand that those things are our right, a human right, and that's something that we have to bring into conversation as part of this course. So again, my name's Elliot Dockstader-Wynn. I'm your teacher for NBV3E. You can reach me at elliot.dockstader-wynn at nnec.on.ca. Again, our number is 807-737-1488. I'm at extension 2223. And or you can just call the front desk and then they can patch you through. If there's anybody in our wide world of listening, you can do the same. Hit me up. And if we can't talk about it on here, we'll talk about it in Digital Voices, which airs every other week from now until the end of the school year. So Chimigwech for your help and accommodations to our day. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.